Welcome back to another episode on Anxiety Doesn't Own Me podcast. My name is Emmanuel Isaacson, and I'm an anxiety coach who helps people to overcome and heal their anxiety naturally. On today's episode, what I'm going to be talking about is how a lot of people that struggle with anxiety also develop depression. They also struggle with depression. And this is something that I personally experienced as well. Whenever I had anxiety, I had very severe depression. And I want to talk about this today so that you guys can have a better idea, a better clarity of what's going on with you and why you're feeling that way and what you can do about it and how you can overcome this feeling of depression, because it's not like a regular depression. It's not like sadness. It's not like whenever you're sad, it's like, oh, like something happened, so you feel sad about it, or you saw something bad happening, so you feel sad about it, or something happened to you, so you feel sad about it. Depression is a very strong feeling. It's something that you feel, and it's much more than that. It's pain. It's literally pain in your body, and it's such a deep feeling, and it's not something you can just snap out of it or make yourself feel much better. It's not like something like, what, I'm sad. Okay, you know what? After an hour or two, I feel much better. It's not like that. It's much more severe than that, and it's a constant feeling where you can't even control, where you can't even stop crying. And it's pain. It's literally pain that I never want to experience ever again. And I think anybody that does experience it knows what I'm talking about. I think only the people that actually experience depression can really understand what it feels like. It's not the times where you feel like you're demotivated, or you just don't feel inspired, or you just feel down. It's not like that. That's like more of something you can get out of. Depression takes time. And today, I want you to understand why a lot of people with anxiety also had depression and what you can do about the depression so that you may feel better, so that you can start improving yourself. So the reason why a lot of people with anxiety that have depression is because depression and anxiety are intertwined with one another. And what I mean by that is that if you realize people with anxiety, whenever you have anxiety, a lot of us, we're very emotional. We are very sensitive. We right away get offended, or we feel very overwhelmed. We can pick up on energy very quickly because we are just in a very sensitive state of mind. And also our sympathetic nervous system is on overdrive, and we can't control our emotions and everything. We can control ourselves, so we are very emotional. And also on top of that, we think very negatively about ourselves, about situations, about life itself. We're just in a very negative state of mind because anxiety is created from the negativity of what we think about. So if we think about something negative, we're going to feel more anxious. So for example, what if something bad happens to me, or what if I have a panic attack, or what if I faint, or what if I have a medical issue, or what if I have this, everything negative, this is going to create more anxiety. On top of that, whenever you're thinking negatively, whenever you have a negative mindset, you are going to feel depressed. You are going to feel that way. And also, a lot of people with anxiety, because we've been dealing with this for a long time, and it feels like we're stuck. It feels like we can't get out of this. It feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, can make us feel very, very hopeless. That is a huge thing, and that can literally make you feel depressed. Now, for me personally, on top of all those things that I talked about, another thing that made me get depression was that I thought that I screwed myself because I used to smoke a lot of weed. And every time I was high, I had this thought of what if I'm going to be stuck like this for the rest of my life? I'm going to be screwed. And that used to freak me out whenever I was high. It used to freak me out. I'm like, oh my God, I want to get out of this. I don't want to be stuck like this for the rest of my life. That's a little too much. I don't want to go insane. So whenever I had anxiety, and then I experienced DPDR after 2 months of having anxiety, and I felt like having these thoughts of who am I? I'm like, why does the reality look fake? I would feel disconnected from myself, from other people. And I would have a lot of weird questions. And I said to myself, oh my God, Emmanuel, it's because of the weed that you smoked, and I didn't know it was DPDR, and it's because of the weed that you smoked. This is the reason why you feel this way. This is the reason why you have all these thoughts and why you feel disconnected from reality. This is the reason why. And now you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. That fear came true. Also, what also solidified that belief that I got screwed from the weed is because that I went to this therapist and I was explaining to him my symptoms and what I was thinking about, the thoughts that I had, and that person didn't understand. And he told me, I have no idea what you're talking about. And that like freaked me out. I said to myself, like, oh my God, then it must be from the weed. If a therapist doesn't know, if he went to school for this, he studied this is his profession, and he doesn't know what I'm talking about, then that means it's from the weed, and I screwed myself. I'm going to be like this the rest of my life. And it put me in such a depression, that thought, the hopelessness, the feeling emotional. Like I used to be very sensitive to people. If someone told me something in the wrong way or they would disappoint me, like for example, I remember my dad, whenever I was at anxiety, I wanted to paint the house because I wanted to keep my mind occupied. And I told my dad, like, can you help me out? Can you paint with me? He's like, yeah, no problem. And it didn't happen. And I went to the store and I was like calling him, like, are you going to come to the store? Are you going to paint with me? He's like, I have no time. I can't do it, this and that. And just from that, I got very offended. I I felt so down. Also, I remember I went to the hospital. I went to the hospital because I was having anxiety, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was fine with me. And I didn't know it was anxiety, and nobody wanted to come with me to the hospital. I went by myself. I went by myself to the hospital, and it made me feel so alone. I said, nobody cares. Nobody actually cares. And I felt so alone. I felt so sensitive. Nowadays I can go to the hospital by myself. It doesn't bother me. But at that moment, I felt so emotional. And I was very sensitive to everything. And I remember coming home from the hospital afterwards, I literally was crying for like 20, 30 minutes in front of my entire family. They were shocked. They didn't understand what was going on. Like, Emmanuel, what happened? I'm like, I don't know. I just feel very sensitive. This will mostly happen to me whenever the sun would set. So this happened to me in the wintertime when I started having anxiety, so the sun would set much earlier. And every single morning I would wake up and I would think about the sunset. I'm like, oh my God, the sun's going to set today. I wish it doesn't. I don't want to feel this depression. I don't want to feel this intense, this emotional intensity. I don't want to feel it when the sun would set. And whenever it would happen, uncontrollably, I would start crying. I would just start crying and I couldn't stop. And I remember it would go every single day like this. And once the sun would set, I would feel fine again. I would feel great again. I would feel fine. I'm like, oh, I don't know why. And I remember my brother had the same exact thing. He recently went through cancer and he had a tumor in his brain. And afterwards, thankfully he's good now. And I remember there was times I would sit with him. He's like, Emmanuel, I feel depressed. I remember the sun would set. And I'm like, yeah, right when the sun would set. He's like, yeah, every single thing when the sun would set, I would just feel this. And he would start crying. He couldn't control it. He's like, I feel like shit. He's like, once the sun would set, he's like, I feel great. I remember that. It was so intense. And I never want that ever again. But the question is over here, guys, what can we do? What can we do in order to stop feeling depressed, to stop having depression? Something that I saw on YouTube that really kind of changed my mindset of not wanting depression was that instead of saying that, tell yourself, I accept the way I feel. Because whenever we're depressed, because it's so intense, the emotion is so intense and it's so deep and it's so hurtful that we don't want to feel that way. Like I said, I didn't want to feel that way. I woke up in the morning, I'm like, no, I don't want to feel that way. I do not want the sun to set. I don't want that. I don't want to start crying because it's not a regular cry. It's a very deep cry and it's a very hurtful one that you feel like this. I don't know what I can't even describe the feeling. I can't even describe it. It's so hard to describe it. It's more than emptiness. It's this hurt. It's this hurt that it's like, oh man, I can't even explain it. It can't even explain it. But the ones that went through it can understand what I'm talking about. But whatever it happens is that the trick over here is that not wanting to happen makes the depression worse. It makes you more depressed. It's like with the anxiety. Whenever we don't want the anxiety, what happens? Our anxiety increases. But whenever we're okay with the anxiety decreases whenever we want it. Same thing with the depression. And I saw this video on YouTube that with the big black dog, I recommend watching it. the big black dog, I'll put a link in the description so you guys can link it straight to there. So in the big black dog, that video, it basically shows this big black dog and you're like this small person. And throughout the video, it's explaining that the more you accept, the more you stop running away from it. And the more you accept it, this dog becomes smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. It's the more we accept it, unless we fight it, unless we try to push it out, what happens is that the depression starts going away. And I remember throughout the 3 years of me having anxiety, there was times where I felt depressed and I did this. And I'm like, Emmanuel, I feel down. I feel depressed right now. I'm not going to fight it, I said. I'm not going to fight this. I'm going to accept my emotion. I'm going to acknowledge my emotion. And I remember telling my brother this whenever afterwards he recovered. I'm like, David, don't try to fight the emotion. I know it's very intense. Just be with it. Accept the way you feel. Acknowledge the way you feel, because what you went through, it's not an easy thing. And guys, whatever you're going through, anxiety, it's not an easy thing. And your body needs to heal. And we take off the pressure from ourselves, the stress and the worry. And the way we do that is accepting and acknowledging what we feel and the way we feel right now. We shouldn't fight it. And you know what's crazy, guys? Every time I would do this, and other people that did this, within an hour, they start feeling much better. It can be even shorter. But most of the people within an hour, they start feeling much better because, again, they're not fighting it. They're not fighting it anymore. They're just, okay, you know what? I just feel down. And I remember doing that. I would just sit down. I'm like, you know what? I just feel down right now. I'm not going to fight it. I'm not going to try to make myself feel much better. I'm not going to try to go someplace to make myself feel much better. I'm not going to try to escape this. A lot of us want to escape it. No, I'm not going to escape this. I am just going to be here with my emotions. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to feel the way I am. That's going to help you guys tremendously. I recommend trying it out. You have nothing to lose. Because think about it. So far, what you've been doing hasn't helped, right? So what you could do is accept it and see how it works. You're not accepting your situation, guys. You're accepting the way you feel. I'm not telling you just to be depressed and that's it, stay that way. No. Accepting the way you feel, understanding that, okay, you know what? I need to overcome this. And the way I overcome this is by acknowledging the way I feel. And like I said before in the beginning of the episode, is that a lot of us, we think in a very negative way. We think very negatively about ourselves, and we put ourselves down a lot. Like, for example, whenever somebody comes out of anxiety, they start feeling much better, and all of a sudden they have anxiety again. And like, oh man, why is this happening to me? I suck. I can never get out of this. I'm a failure. You see, I'm going to be stuck like this the rest of my life. No. We want to instill more positivity and tell ourselves that, you know what, this down moment right now is an opportunity for me to grow. I'm not 100% out of it, and anxiety is not going to be 100% absolute that I don't have anxiety. It's not going to happen that way right now. Eventually we'll get there, but right now my body still needs to heal, and it doesn't mean I'm a failure, because there are times where I feel great. And we should look at the success of the times that I did have success, at the times that I did overcome those down moments, those times where I was feeling down or where I had anxiety. So we want to start looking at things in a positive way, looking at ourselves more in a positive way, and looking at the good and giving ourselves some love. Love is a big thing, guys. A lot of people are depressed because they don't have that love. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted by everybody else, but we need to accept ourselves first. If we're not willing to accept ourselves first, other people can't accept us. So we need to accept ourselves first, and we can do this various ways. There's different ways. We can tell ourselves, one of the most powerful ways is by going to the mirror and telling yourself, I love you. Telling yourself over and over again, hey, I love you. It sounds weird to do, but we need that love because we didn't get it from our parents, our siblings, or our spouse, our kids, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We need to start manifesting the love from ourselves, and the way we do that is by telling ourselves, hey, you know what? I love you. I love you. Telling yourself that, you're going to feel much better. So guys, to conclude over here is that, number one, don't fight the depression. Don't fight the way you feel. Just like with the anxiety, accept the way you feel. Acknowledge the way you feel. And it's okay. Don't try to escape it. It's okay to feel that way. And you'll see eventually you feel much better. And also, start thinking more positively about yourself. Start giving yourself some love. Start loving yourself, not in a selfish way, but more in a way of healing yourself, because we need that. and you will see that you will start feeling much better. And of course, guys, if there's things in the past, things that happened to you in the past that has affected you, and this is something that I also did, I recommend healing those things. Healing those things, not for the other person or anything like that, for yourself. For yourself. It's worth it. You are worth it. And healing those past wounds, you will see that you also start to feel much better, because it could be that you were suppressing those things that you went through and the things that you've experienced, and this is manifesting and it's coming up. And that's something that happened to me, and I actually healed my past wounds, and it helped me out tremendously. So I recommend doing that. I recommend doing that with somebody. So if you are interested, I do, by the way, one-on-one sessions. If you want to do a 30-minute free consultation, it's totally free. I will link it in the description below. So check that out. You can set it up. I have a calendar over there. You can pick the perfect time that you want, and we will definitely do that. 30 minutes consultation free of charge. If you did like this episode, please click the like button and leave a 5-star review. The reason why I ask is because this way we're able to reach more people, and the more people that we can actually reach, the more people that we can actually help. Because my mission in this world, my purpose, is to help people to overcome and heal their anxiety naturally and show them that it's possible to overcome. Thank you guys. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.